Maggie had worked double shifts at the diner for as long as she could remember. At 24, she was no stranger to hard work, but the long hours and low pay were starting to wear her down. Still, she took pride in her job, greeting every customer with a warm smile and doing her best to brighten their day. One rainy evening, as the diner was winding down, a man in an expensive suit walked in. He looked out of place in the modest setting, his designer shoes clicking against the cracked linoleum floor. Maggie recognized him immediately. Alexander Kane, the billionaire tech mogul who'd been in the news lately for his controversial business practices. "Welcome to Rosie's Diner," Maggie said, handing him a menu. "Can I get you something to drink?" Alexander barely glanced at her. "Coffee, black." Maggie nodded and hurried to the kitchen, where her co-worker Joe was wiping down the counters. "That's Alexander Kane," she whispered, eyes wide. "What's he doing here?" Joe shrugged. "Who knows? Rich guys like him don't usually hang out in places like this." Maggie poured the coffee and brought it to Alexander's table. As she set it down, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes and the slight tremor in his hands. He looked exhausted, almost haunted. "Here you go," she said gently. "Let me know if you need anything else." Alexander nodded but stayed silent. Maggie hesitated before walking away. Something about him seemed off. A few minutes later, she returned to check on him. He was staring out the window, his coffee untouched. "Everything okay?" she asked. Alexander sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, not really." Maggie surprised herself by sitting across from him. "Do you want to talk about it?" Alex looked at her, his expression a mix of surprise and relief. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," Maggie said with a small smile. For a moment Alexander hesitated. Then, as if a dam had broken, the words poured out. He told her about the pressure of running a billion-dollar company, the constant media scrutiny, and the toll it was taking on his health and relationships. He even confessed to decisions he wasn't proud of: cutting corners, exploiting workers, prioritizing profits over people. Maggie listened quietly, her heart aching for him. When he finished, she took a deep breath. "I may not be a billionaire," she said, "but I know what it's like to feel trapped. And I know money doesn't solve everything. If you keep going down this path, you're going to lose yourself and the people who care about you." Alexander stared at her, eyes wide. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Most people either feared him or wanted something from him. But Maggie, she was different. The next morning, Maggie was stunned to see Alexander's face on the news. He'd called a press conference to announce he was stepping down as CEO and donating a significant portion of his wealth to charity. The reporters were in a frenzy, but Alexander seemed calm, almost relieved. Maggie couldn't believe it. Had her words really made that much of an impact? A few days later, Alexander returned to the diner. This time, he looked different. More relaxed, more human. He sat at the same table and waited for Maggie to approach. "I wanted to thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "You were right. I was losing myself, and I didn't even realize it." Maggie smiled. "I'm glad I could help." Alexander reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "I'm starting a new foundation to help people in need. People like you who work hard but don't always get a fair shot. I'd like you to be a part of it." Maggie's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a waitress." "You're more than that," Alexander said. "You have a good heart, and that's exactly what this foundation needs." Maggie accepted his offer, leaving the diner to work for his foundation. She helped design programs to support low-income families, provide scholarships for underprivileged students, and create job training opportunities. Her first-hand experience gave her a unique perspective, and she quickly became an invaluable member of the team. As for Alexander, he found a new sense of purpose in his work. He no longer measured success by his bank account, but by the lives. He was able to change, and it was all thanks to a waitress who had the courage to speak her mind.